The Middle East Media Research Institute is a not-for-profit press monitoring and analysis organization with headquarters in Washington, D.C. MEMRI publishes and distributes free English-language translations of Arabic, Persian, Urdu, Pashto, and Turkish media reports. MEMRI states that its goal is to bridge the language gap between the Middle East and the West through a translation service considered to have great value. Critics charge that despite portraying itself as neutral, it aims to portray the Arab and Muslim world in a negative light through the production and dissemination of incomplete translations and by selectively translating views of extremists while de-emphasizing or ignoring mainstream opinions. History. The institute was co-founded in 1998 by Yigal Carmen, a former Israeli military intelligence officer, and Mirav Wormser, an Israeli-born American political scientist. Staff based in Washington, D.C., with branch offices in Jerusalem, Berlin, London, Rome, Shanghai, Baghdad, and Tokyo. MEMRI was founded in 1998 by Yigal Carmen and Mirav Wormser, who later left MEMRI in 2001, is an Israeli-born American scholar of the Arab world. She is also a senior fellow at the U.S. think tank, the Hudson Institute, who participated in a study that led to the report Is a Clean Break? A New Strategy for Securing the Realm, a paper prepared for Likud party leader and then incoming Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. MEMRI's founding staff of 7 included 3 who had formerly served in military intelligence in the Israeli Defense Forces. MEMRI president and founder Yigal Carmen states that MEMRI's current staff includes people of the Jewish, Christian and Muslim faiths hold a range of political views. Yigal Carmen, MEMRI's founder and president. Carmen is fluent in Arabic. He served as colonel in the Military Intelligence Directorate from 1968 to 1988. He was acting head of civil administration in the West Bank and the advisor on Arab affairs to the civil administration from 1977 to 1982. He advised Prime Ministers Shamir and Rabin on countering Palestinian militants from 1988 to 1993. In 1991 and 1992, Carmen was a senior member of the Israeli delegation at peace negotiations with Syria in Madrid and Washington. Alberto M. Fernandez, Vice President of MEMRI since June 2015. Ambassador Fernandez is a fluent Arabic speaker and was a career Foreign Service officer with the U.S. Department of State from 1983 to 2015, serving mostly in the Middle East and Africa. Stephen Starlinski, Executive Director of MEMRI. Starlinski holds a M.A. in Middle Eastern Studies and a B.A. in Religious Studies. Starlinski writes articles on the Middle East for National Review and the New York Sun. Nimrod Rafaeli, senior analyst and editor of MEMRI's economic blog. An Iraqi-born U.S. citizen, Rafaeli has a Ph.D. in development planning from the University of Michigan. Menahem Milson, Board of Advisors Chairman. Milson has been a professor of Arabic literature at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem since 1963, and is currently the head of its Arabic-Hebrew dictionary project. In November 1981, Milson was the first head of the civil administration that Israel imposed on the occupied territories to replace the purely military administration that had been there since 1967. Tufail Ahmed, South Asia Studies Project Director, a British journalist of Indian origin, Ahmed studied social systems for an M.A. at New Delhi's Jawaharlal Nehru University and received an M.A. in War Studies from King's College London. Mansour al-Hadj, Director of MEMRI's Reform in the Arab and Muslim World Project, a Saudi Arabian journalist. Mirza Abi Baig, senior analyst at MEMRI's South Asia Studies Project. He is an Indian researcher who studied at the Jamia Millia Islamia for 2 master's degrees and obtained an MPhil in comparative literature and a PhD from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Board of Directors Oliver Buck Revel, Chairman, a former Associate Deputy Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, President of Revel Group International. Michael Mukasey, a former U.S. Attorney General, a former judge of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. Reed Morden, a former director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada and President and CEO of Atomic Energy of Canada Limited. Robert R. Riley, former senior advisor at the Department of Defense, chairman of the Committee for Western Civilization at the Claremont Institute and CEO of Atomic Energy of Canada Limited. Jeffrey Kaufman, an intellectual property lawyer. Steve Emerson, journalist, author, executive director of the Investigative Project on Terrorism, Objectives and Projects. MEMRI's original mission statement read, in its research the Institute puts emphasis on the continuing relevance of Zionism to the Jewish people and to the State of Israel. Quote, in September 2001, MEMRI replaced it with the current mission statement, which states that the organization explores the Middle East through the region's media. MEMRI bridges the language gap which exists between the West and the Middle East, providing timely translations of Arabic, Persian, Turkish, and Urdu Pashto media, as well as original analysis of political, ideological, intellectual, social, cultural, and religious trends in the Middle East. MEMRI's goals and emphasis have evolved over the years. It originally translated articles in both Arabic and Hebrew. Concerning this change in their mission statement, Political Research Associates, which studies the U.S. political right, notes that it occurred 3 weeks after the September 11th attacks, and considers MEMRI was previously more forthcoming about its political orientation in its self-description and in staff profiles on its website. PRA considers that MEMRI's slogan, bridging the language gap between the Middle East and the West, does not convey the Institute's stridently pro-Israel and anti-Arab political bias. Quote, it further notes that MEMRI's founders, Wormser and Carmen, are both hardline pro-Israel ideologues aligned with Israel's Likud party. Carmen, in a public letter to Wan Cole that included a threat with a lawsuit over his comments on MEMRI, stated that he has never been affiliated with Likud. Cole answered that he hadn't alleged that, but that MEMRI would campaign for Likud goals such as the rejection of the Oslo peace process. The organization indirectly gained public prominence as a source of news and analysis about the Muslim world. Following the September 11th attacks and the subsequent war on terrorism by the Bush administration, according to MEMRI, its translations and reports are distributed to congresspersons, congressional staff, policymakers, journalists, academics, and interested parties. According to PRA, MEMRI's translated articles and its commentary are routinely cited in national media outlets in the United States, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Los Angeles Times, while analyses by MEMRI staff and officers are frequently published by right-wing and neoconservative media outlets such as National Review, Fox News, Commentary, and The Weekly Standard. PRA writes that both critics and supporters of MEMRI note its increasing influence in shaping perceptions of the Middle East. East. It has maintained long-standing relations with law enforcement agencies. In 2012, Haaretz reported that Israeli intelligence agencies have reduced the monitoring the Palestinian media with MEMRI and Palestinian Media Watch Now, providing the Israeli government with coverage of anti-Israel incitement in social media, blogs and other online sources. The Prime Minister's Bureau has stated that before the government cites information provided by the two sources, the source of the material and its credibility is confirmed. Projects: the Jihad and AMP Terrorism Threat Monitor Project. The MEMRI Jihad and Terrorism Threat Monitor monitors imminent and potential threats posed by terrorist and violent extremist organizations and individuals. It also analyzes the ideological motivations behind these threats and contains 15 years of archives with exclusive content on jihad and terrorism. The Reform Project. The Reform Project identifies advocates of reform in the Arab and Muslim world, with the goals of providing a platform to help them address citizens and leaders in the respective societies, and to aid Western policy makers in fashioning a strategic approach to supporting their efforts. The MEMRI Lantos Archives on Anti-Semitism and Holocaust Denial. In 2009, MEMRI and the Lantos Foundation dedicated the Tom Lantos Archives on Anti-Semitism and Holocaust Denial as the repository of the MEMRI Anti-Semitism Documentation Project. The archives document anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial in newspaper reports, editorials, and broadcast and online content from across the Arab and Muslim world. 2 decades of monitoring have made this the world's largest archive of translated anti-Semitic material from the region. The archives holds an annual bipartisan event on Capitol Hill in the Speaker's Dining Room to present its yearly report. Speakers at the event have included Nobel Prize laureate Elie Wiesel, a former speaker and current minority leader of the U.S. House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi, then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, Sen. John McCain, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives Paul Ryan, Wahida, Brad Sherman, Sen. Bill Nelson, Imam of Drancy, Paris Sheikh Hassan Choufumi and others. The MEMRI TV Monitoring Project. MEMRI TV translates and analyzes Middle East television programming, radio, newspapers, textbooks and websites. This project includes hundreds of hours of translated video and audio footage, has released nearly 5,500 translated clips, and has had over 150 million views online. It is the world's largest archives of translated clips from the Middle East. The South Asia Studies Project. The South Asia Studies Project publishes analytical reports and research tracking trends in Afghanistan, Pakistan and India. The project focuses on cultural and religious freedom, terrorism and emerging threats to international security. Cyber and Jihad Lab. The Cyber and Jihad Lab researches, monitors and translates jihadist and terrorist groups found on social media, websites and ISPs, and tracks jihadist hacking groups. The CJL works in the U.S. and globally to inform legislators, media, academia, the business community and others about the threat of cyber terrorism. The CJL provides information to help policymakers and government leaders advance initiatives to combat cyber terrorism, works with technology and business leaders to create solutions to combat cyber jihad, and works globally to increase awareness of the problem so appropriate solutions can be crafted. The Iran Studies Project. The Iran Studies Project monitors, translates and analyzes Iranian print and electronic media on a daily basis, producing hundreds of hours of translations and analysis from Iran's media outlets and websites. It also monitors Iranian reformers and advocates for democracy, women's rights, etc. The 9/11 Documentation Project. The 9/11 Documentation Project focuses on the ideological roots of the September 11 attacks on the United States with primary source material from Arab and Islamic media. The project now has the world's most extensive archives on this subject, including efforts to deny responsibility for 9/11 or to attribute it to others. Languages. MEMRI monitors primary sources in Arabic, Persian, Turkish, Urdu, Pashto media and other material from the Middle East, Asia, North Africa, and Arab and Muslim communities in the West. These include newspaper articles, sermons, speeches and interviews, websites, TV broadcasts, and school books. MEMRI provides translations and analyses into English, French, German, Hebrew, Italian, Spanish, Polish, Russian, Chinese, Japanese. Financial support. MEMRI is registered in the U.S. with the IRS as a 501 non-profit organization. They have a policy of not accepting money from governments, relying instead on around 250 private donors, including other organizations and foundations. Media Transparency, an organization that monitors the financial ties of conservative think tanks to conservative foundations in the United States, reported that for the years 1999 to 2004, MEMRI received $100,000 from the Lyndon Harry Bradley Foundation, Inc., $100,000 from the Randolph Foundation, and $5,000 from the John M. Olin Foundation. MEMRI's U.S. income statement of June 2004 stated that its total U.S. revenue was $2,571,899. Its total U.S. functional expenses were $2,254,990, and that it possessed net assets of $700,784. Charity Navigator, an organization that evaluates the financial health of America's largest charities, has given MEMRI a 4-star rating, meaning that it exceeds industry standards and outperforms most charities in its scores when rated on its financial health. In August 2011, the United States Department of State's Office of International Religious Freedom in the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor awarded MEMRI a $200,000 grant.